All right, so good afternoon. We're back here with Alison Holland. We hope you have a wonderful break. Medable sponsored it. Next time we're at an in-person event, you can surely enjoy some of the refreshments that they provide for you. But we don't have that luxury this time around. So, but we do have Ali
All right,
here.
so good afternoon.
Alison
We're back here
is
with
the head of decentralized trials at Medable. Ali is a veteran of 20 years from Covance, and she's burning the midnight oil, dialing in from overseas. So please welcome Ali here. She's going to be focusing on, building a decentralized trial and a successful strategy focused around the patient. So, Ali, I will give you the microphone.
Thank you very much, Doug. I'm delighted to be with you all this afternoon. Thank you for giving me some time on the agenda. I know you're having a great meeting, and really focus on that patient experience of a clinical trial is so important. I'm happy to have opportunity to talk about some examples of how Medable has put the patient at the center of the clinical trial and designed our decentralized platform around the user experience of those patients. And I have some case studies I can share with you, some best practices, and a little bit of information and feedback on what we're seeing coming along, and ways in which we can enhance and support our patients even further as we go forward. I think, as we all are familiar with right now, our clinical trial strategy for many years has been burdened by a number of key challenge areas, ensuring that we have high science, high data quality, and trying to reduce the objectivity of the data that we're collecting, being able to support patient recruitment and increase the diversity and the attractiveness of a clinical trial to patient populations, and make our clinical trials more accessible. When many of us do every other component of our home lives based on our phones and digitally, it seems that we're a little behind the industry in terms of being able to offer that experience to patients for their clinical trial as well. And really being able to reduce the burden of the protocol requirements on patients and the sites, such that it's easier to participate and patients have choices about how they wish to participate in a clinical trial that can fit around their day-to-day lives, and maybe not drag them all to the hospital every time, and give them some choices about ways in which they can participate remotely. All of which, when we think about our patients individually leading very busy lives, wanting to spend time with friends, family, their work, and their other commitments in life, we really need to make sure that the experience is positive to enable patients to not only come into the study, but to stay in the study as well and complete the assessments with us. So as we think about what we are looking to do go forward, we're really looking to support enrolment, retention, burden, and data quality, really reducing down the amount of manual entry, reducing the intrusiveness of the study assessments on the patients, and reducing the amount of manual data entry from patients and physicians across the clinical study. So at Medable, we have a patient council. TJ Sharp has been a very prolific engagement in our patient council for many years. We have a core group of patient council members who really advise us on our roadmap, our technical design capabilities, and then the feature sets that we're putting in place, how we design them, and what the patient user experience is from those feature sets. And so we're looking at building an ecosystem of digitally enabled capabilities that surround the patient, and that not all studies, and indeed not all patients within a study, will want or need to use all of them, but that they are all unified together such that whichever combinations are needed, they all speak to one another, they all flow information and data between one another, so that we can reduce down the number of touch points for where data is entered, when data is collected, and how it gets to the other participants across the ecosystem of the clinical study. And for us, one of the pivotal design principles around Medable was the minute data is collected around a patient, We want it to be visible to their study team and caregivers to ensure that their remote oversight can be really supported in a way that hasn't been enabled before. So as we collect information, maybe from diaries or wearables, that we can stream that and link it with other contextual data, maybe the last lab data, and make sure that that's visible to the PI. And that if needed, then an ad hoc televisit or a contact to the patient can be made in real time. So we're not waiting until the next study visit is due to take place maybe in 4 weeks' time, 6 weeks' time, and so on. But we're able to engage with the patient, so the patient really does feel as though they're having the gold standard care enabled to them through participation in the clinical study. Looking at making sure we can collect diary data in validated scales and assessments, and maybe supporting that with wearable data and ingesting that together, all of it streamed so that the patient has one application that they have to go to, where all of the capabilities for the study can be delivered to them. So the patient and the site are not having to go to multiple different systems, websites and apps, and use multiple different hardwares, but that everything can be streamed together in a single experience on web or mobile to ensure that the patients not only have the ability to use a digital modality that is familiar to them, but also that they can see all of the information they need at any time point. So, maybe they want to go back and look at something in the e-consent form that they signed previously and be able to recall that up on screen, or they're in their pharmacy and the pharmacist says, well, are there any prohibited medications you can't take? And they can recall that information there and then so that they really have the study at their fingertips. And so as we really think about that shift from clinical trials being on-site to being able to wrap activities around the patient in whatever home location they happen to be in, we're really looking at how do we build this remote ecosystem to allow the patient to sit in the center. And for us, one of the foundational parts of that ecosystem is really a fully informed consent process that can be enabled digitally and with additional workflows accommodated that can enable the patient to choose to have some component of the consenting process undertaken face-to-face, other parts at home. We can accommodate for different regulatory environments and cultural acceptances as well by having a highly flexible, configurable set of workflows that really focus on an embedded suite of tools and capabilities. And e-consent is really the patient's first exposure to the clinical trial. So we want it to be the best experience where they have all of the information enabled to them in a way that supports comprehension, knowledge check, and understanding, as well as being able to ask questions, to have open dialogue, be able to accommodate different workflows, maybe have videos and pictures, diagrams, call-out boxes embedded in the e-consent workflow, such that by the time we come to the actual signatory part of that, be that by wet ink signature with a print sign capability, an on-glass signature capability, or a digital PIN number capability, all of that has been enabled such that the patient and the site have the ultimate choice about how they wish to participate and how they want to work together. And then the interoperability of the capabilities to ensure that not only can data be collected, but it can be passed to the others who might need it. So maybe directly streamed to the IXRS system to support randomization, maybe directly into the EDC system or the archiving system, maybe directly to the labs to accompany a biosample sub-protocol for long-term storage of biosamples. So lots of different capabilities that we stream together, utilizing a platform capability that is already unified and allows us to build these workflows that really then put the study in context, give choices, and enable that site and patient experience to be really enhanced from the get-go, and enable the ongoing activities of the study, be they traditional or decentralized, to really get off to a very strong start and ensure that the physician-patient relationship is as strong as it possibly can be, and the patient knows where to go to get further information about that participation in a study. So I mentioned our patient council. Our patient council is hugely active. We've talked about patient centricity across our industry for an awful long time. And at Medable, I really see that being put into practice on a day-to-day level, that we engage our advisory council, as well as our extended patient champion network, who have maybe more broad representation, including caregivers and more patients with different experiences of clinical trial participation, to really look at the feature set of our platform, but also the workflows that are being designed to meet a particular study, and to advise us on that, such that we can make sure when we deploy the study live, that it truly does what it says for the patients, and it puts the patient experience first. We look at how we're designing for comprehension, how we're looking at screen layouts, how we're, what size buttons, what color combinations are we using, that really make sure that that work for different age ranges and different representation of different patient groups, so that then the applications really have that high user satisfaction and engagement levels that we're looking for, that mean that we are able to have a really positive experience for patients of participating in a clinical trial that's designed around them. We've deployed this many times in different workflows around the world. I have a couple of example case studies here, where this was a study where we were looking at genetic screening for patients who didn't know they have a genetic subtype, and bringing them in to an interventional study. In this particular case, patients were contacted and pre-screened according to site lists and an advocacy group contacts. They were able to respond and connect to our application via a mobile download that they could use on their own smart devices. That included the consenting process, where information was presented to them. We were able to collect a digital signature. Those patients who were eligible on their screening criteria were shipped a genetic swab kit to home, where they were able to home swab, send that back directly to the lab where it was processed. Their results were shared with them via a genetic counselling team via the applications. And then those patients who were eligible were able to consent for the ongoing interventional arm of the study. Those patients who weren't eligible actually were able to register into a natural history study to follow them as well. This was a very interesting case study from a number of perspectives. It used our core features, but it did so at scale. So this was a study looking at patients with a known ophthalmic disease. They were an older patient population by default, and we had to screen 11,000 patients to find the rare genetic variant that the particular study was looking for. Only 2% of patients were estimated to have that variant. And you think about if that had been done in a traditional setting, and thousands and thousands of patients making an on-site bricks and mortar trip to the site to go through this process and have to come back for their results, only to find that 98% of them weren't positive for the particular variant we were looking for. And so by doing this digitally and in an entirely remote screening process, we were able to save over 12 months of cycle time on patient accrual into this study, and find all the patients who were needed to be eligible who tested positive for that genetic test. Similarly, another rare disease study actually that has been working very well so far, where the patient again e-consents, completes the eligibility survey, has the ability to televisit with their PI, a central PI team in this case, and then go to a nearest clinical lab, have their labs drawn, and then complete diary pages, have repeat samples, go through the assessment schedules for the study, and all of this be managed in a remote local setting to the patient without the patient having to travel to a central site. And all of the component parts and all of the workflow for all of the stakeholders here fully enabled as a digital experience, with the information and data flowing directly across the platform to inform all the different participants and all the different stakeholder groups. And because we design for the user experience, we were very proud to have our latest patient rating data back and find that over 95% of patients are rating our app experience as good or very good. That includes a mixture of patients who transition in flight from a traditional bricks and mortar on-site study into a digital decentralized ongoing study as a result of the recent pandemic, and for patients who have come into the study new, who haven't had a prior on-site experience of the clinical study. So really looking at some really strong evidence that that patient experience and designing for the patient experience can return very, very strong metrics when we get it right and when we put the patient at the center of our design capabilities. So we're really enabling us to embrace appropriate innovation, position it in a way that is acceptable and designed around our primary patients, be able to remove some of the rework and manual uploading of data, and create a frictionless workflow with enabled choices for patients and their physicians about how they wish to participate in the study. So, Doug, I think with that, we're probably just about on our time point.
Absolutely. You're always on time, Ali. It's pretty amazing. You got eyes in the back of your head. So one quick question. So are you guys seeing an increase of interest in kind of the decentralized model, across the industry, given the disruption of COVID-19?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We had launched a number of studies. The case studies I showed you were launched pre-pandemic, so they were already by design going decentralized. And we'd seen an uptick, particularly in the second half of last year, with a number of studies looking to have decentralized capabilities built in. But this year, obviously, with the patients, not being able to travel to sites so often, and in some cases, we've had examples where even the site study team couldn't get to site, and yet we had patients ongoing in the studies that needed support. So we've actually seen a 400% increase in business this year, and really see that building in decentralized options for future studies seems to be a very pragmatic way forward. So we're loving the conversations we're having with our clients. There really isn't a one-size-fits-all, apart from understanding your patients, understanding where your patients are and what kind of support might be relevant for them and that they would appreciate, and then designing a deployed system really around that patient experience seems to be the way forward, and the way we're seeing an awful lot of success and progress.
Okay, perfect. So there's one last question in the chat. If you could take maybe 20 seconds, it might just be a quick yes or no answer, but are there controls in place to avoid incomplete patient and or study information?
Yes. Short answer is yes, and for duplicates and to prevent for fraud and rescreening as well. So happy to follow up if anyone wants to email me that question directly, and I can provide more info.
So, if you would like to reach Ali, she'll be reachable in the People tab, and we'll be around for the one-on-one networking. So you might be paired up with her randomly, but thank you so much, Ali. I really appreciate it. Thank you again to Medable, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So lastly, we are moving on to the innovation and technology and clinical trial design. It's a fantastic panel to round out the day. So stay tuned, and it will be here in just a moment.